Okay, so good morning. Thank you for joining us today, Joshua. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm very excited to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. I like doing these. It's a lot of fun. And
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so firstly, you can just kind of start talking about how you ended up being a lawyer, your process, how the schooling process, the way you got there, things along that. So I'll let you introduce yourself. You can go ahead.
So I'm Josh. I'm originally from Montreal. I've actually wanted to be a lawyer since I was a dorky, like 5-year-old. It was something that I always wanted to do, and like I was always, even like when I was too young to really understand much of it, I was always kind of, interested in it. I didn't. I had a kind of tumultuous high school years where I was, not a very good kid and wasn't sure if I'd get into college, let alone law school. And then um, I ended up obviously getting into university. I kind of, my path took a bit of a turn for, something different for a while, but then my goal was always to, eventually finish and then go to law school. I did take a few years off between my bachelor's degree and my starting law school. So I had like about 3 years of kind of just traveling, studying Chinese, etc. And I've been a lawyer for about 10 years now.
Wow.
Called to the bar here, and I'm just in the process of getting my license in BC certified as well, although I'm running into problems with finding somebody who can administer the oath in person in Toronto who's a BC lawyer. But anyway, other subject for another day. If anybody who's watching is a BC lawyer and they're willing to meet me to let me take the oath in front of them, let me know. I would appreciate
it. That's great. That's great. How did you end up, why did you want to go into law school? And can you talk a little bit about like your high school process, where you were, why you ended up going to university that you did, the programs that you took, things like that?
I guess I just always found the legal process pretty interesting. Like I liked, the idea of, this very rigid process that, you can kind of work around and like find tricks to kind of get what you want out of. And I like the personalities that, you can bring to it that kind of liven things up. And yeah, again, it was just always like something that cerebrally I really found engaging. And no matter what was on TV, if it was like law related, I was interested. No matter what movie, no matter what people were talking about. So that was my thing. And then high school, I like I said, I had a very bad high school career. Let's just say I think I bounced around from about, I think, 5 or 6 schools.
Wow.
So I was, by the end of it, I had good grades actually, but I wasn't sure, in the middle of it, where I'd be. And then I decided to go, in Canada, obviously you need a bachelor's for the most part, right, except if you're a, prodigy. So I wasn't sure initially what I wanted to do, but in Quebec, we have actually something called CEGEP. So it's kind of like somewhere between high school and university. Okay. And instead of having like an extra grade like we do here, they just have 2 years of CEGEP or college. And, it's not a bad thing because you do actually have an opportunity to get a better sense of what you like. I think if I had gone to university straight from high school, I probably wouldn't have, or I might not have picked a good program for me, but because I had those 2 years to take a lot of different types of courses and see what I liked, I knew that I liked history. Mm-hmm. And that's what I wanted to do, at least for an undergrad. And then that's what I did. I went to Concordia. In the middle of my first semester, I got into Chinese history and I decided I want to learn Chinese as well. So I spent a year, the following year, my second year of undergrad, I spent in China. Well, sorry, not China, although depending on who you ask, Taiwan. So I was there for a year studying Chinese the whole year, like 9 to 5. So it was great. And then I finished my undergrad. I decided I wasn't ready to go to law school just yet. I wanted to have, what in Europe they call a gap year. Mm-hmm. I turned it into a gap 3 years, but I yeah, I went to, like, my friend and I, we spent, a few months traveling, a few months settling down and working and studying Chinese. So like we spent a few months in Southeast Asia. Then we went to China, spent about 6 months in Beijing living and studying. Then we went to travel around China again. We spent, about 6 months in like Western China, just all over the place, Tibet, and Xinjiang. And then we went to Nepal and India. And then after that, I started another program for a year in China in another city to study Chinese. So I came back, and that's around when I started, getting ready like for the thought of like law school. I realized my grades from uni were pretty good, so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I was really scared to death of the LSAT, to be honest. I was scared shitless. I don't know if I can, but I was like really, really like the LSAT was a huge source of stress for me because it felt like, this insurmountable test that, you could have a bad day when you're performing and, all of a sudden your dreams are completely dashed based on one exam. But long story short, my husband went to study in Australia. I met in China, and so I went to Australia together, and we spent. I was there for about a year. He was there for about a little more than a year, studying an accounting degree. And I was just kind of working on the side, and that's when I started practicing for the LSAT. Mm-hmm. So, and I actually wrote the LSAT as well in Sydney, Australia.
Wow, that's quite a journey.
Yeah, and then my plan was, once I get accepted, come back to Canada and study here.
Wow. And so I know you went to the University of Toronto and the University of Ottawa for your law school, right? Is that?
Yeah.
What was your experience like? Why, was there a particular reason as to why you chose U of T as your law school and UO or?
So UO, I did specifically, I was fortunate to do well on the LSATs. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what my score was. It was like 163 or 4 or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I actually had a lot of options, but I had just liked Ottawa. Initially, I thought I wanted to do international human rights law, which is something they have a lot of at U Ottawa. And also, I liked they had a more holistic approach, and they seemed to be a really good school, not too competitive, very forward thinking. So I decided Ottawa is a good place. We had also spent years living in these huge cities Sydney, Beijing, this other city, Changsha. I was ready for something a little more quiet, so I thought Ottawa was a good choice, and we did Ottawa. The reason, so it's a little complicated why I went to U of T. Mm-hmm. So I did I think it was my second year. I went to China to do another exchange. I went to Beijing and I studied Chinese law there. And, about 2 months into my program, it was an exchange program, of course. 2 months into the program, I actually got very sick. They found out I had a benign brain tumor that was pretty serious. So, yeah, so at the time, it ended up being fine. I'm fine now. But at the time, I needed to, be rushed to Canada for surgery, radiation, etc. So what happened is I left before the end of the semester. I couldn't finish it. And then when I got back, I had to, I was able to get back to school. Surgery was May, and then I was back to school by September, right after I finished radiation. But I didn't, the following year, I had to take a reduced course load. And also because of the semester that I didn't finish, I had some, so I had about 5 or so courses to make up for the following year. So when I graduated or finished that last year of U of Ottawa, I had again 5 more courses to do, and my plan was long term we were going to move to Toronto. We didn't want to live and work in Ottawa, so we just kind of made the jump at that point rather than waiting. Mm-hmm. So all my friends have been graduating, and they're mostly from Toronto. So rather than stay back and being taking courses with students that I don't really know, I figured I'd move with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Quite the journey for you when it comes to the legal world. Wow.
nothing came easy. But I'm not complaining. It's, it makes you appreciate things a lot.
It does, yeah, for sure. So moving along to kind of your day-to-day practice, I know that you practice particularly in personal injury, disability insurance law type of stuff. Do you want to talk a bit about that, why you got into it, why you like it, or if you do like it?
Yeah, so I guess, in terms of why I got into it, in my, I up until I took insurance law as a class at Ottawa. I honestly had no idea what I was going to do. I kept thinking, oh, international law, but it wasn't because I knew anything about international law or had any experience. I was just thinking like, oh, I like to travel, and oh, it makes sense. I should do something with an international flair. But like up until then, I couldn't picture myself doing anything. And then I took an insurance law class with this amazing professor. She's more of a practitioner, but she taught as well, Elizabeth Quigley, who's an Ottawa lawyer, and she's amazing. And she really just dazzled me. Like I was just, like my eyes were just like, forced open, and I was just really, 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 really enamored with insurance law, which sounds bizarre, not a something you hear very often. But I ended up like getting an A plus. Like not that I didn't get some like A range grades here and there, but that was my only A plus in all of law school.
Wow.
And I was mostly a B student, I think. So after that, I started by doing an internship at a smaller PI firm in Toronto that summer. That was the summer we moved. And then when I started looking for articling jobs, which I had a very hard time getting, I used to be really nervous when I'd interview, and I'd like choke up, and I got very awkward. And anyways, it was, it's just an art you need to learn how to do before you do it well. But before I got my articling job, I was actually interested in both sides because I really did like insurance. So, I knew enough about the plaintiff side to know that I would probably like it. And I knew enough about the insurance side to know that I'd probably like it. So I was open to whatever. Most of the, the articling process, they tend to be like bigger firms that come up. So there's not that many personal injury firms that are involved in that process. So almost all of my applications were insurance defense firms.
Right.
And I just, like I said, I bombed for virtually all my interviews and I didn't get a job, which led to a lot of broken plates. But but anyways, it ended up, it worked out because I'm really happy. What ended up happening was it took me some time to like actually learn how to, do a decent interview and not choke. And, over the course of like, the next like several months, I interviewed a lot of firms, and then I found one that I really liked in personal injury. And, I liked my boss. I had actually just gotten another offer at the time, and that other offer was due immediately. And I was like, look, I just got this other offer, but you're my first choice. I really want to work with you. So I know you want to like me to come back and go through the process, but I need to, have an offer now, because otherwise I'm going to have to take this other job.
Right.
Like, Chris. And he was just like, okay, you're hired. So it was the rest is history.
Wow.
And and I love this practice. Like it's going to sound very cheesy, but you really do get to help people. And one of the things I know a lot of some firms will only do, especially nowadays, firms tend to be very focused on like bigger claims, meatier claims, like catastrophic injury, like very serious brain injury, very serious orthopedic injury, things like that. I also like to take on a lot of the smaller chronic pain cases, which I find are very challenging because of some of the laws. But I also find, I really do sympathize with a lot of these people, because chronic pain is, especially when it's just quote unquote invisible pain. There's nothing objectively wrong with you. It can really wreak havoc in your life. And a lot of doctors are very unsympathetic. A lot of treatment doesn't provide much relief, and people get stuck living day to day with pain, and it's hard. So I really do like being able to help people, better their lives, after something like this happens to them. And I also just like the practice. It's a lot of fun. Like there's a lot of variation to it. Like, one day I'm, doing, a million different things, and the next day it looks completely different from, from one thing to the next. I'm the kind of person who likes to be very busy and like bouncing from one thing to another. I don't really like one task that I have to spend the whole day or the whole week doing. So I like being able to really like multitask, and I love problem solving, which is a big part of this as well, I find. So yeah.
Wow, yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, that's a particular perspective that I don't think a lot of people like to talk about, is kind of just like the emotional perspective. Because throughout the course of being a part of this program, like I've gotten to see some lawyers and paralegals who are very kind of hard in their exterior. So it's great to be able to see that, there are some there's some softness almost to.
Yeah. And I mean, that's how to be honest, like I'm very frank. Like I don't sugarcoat things for my clients, because like I don't think it's in their best interest for me to do that.
Yeah.
But I try and be very compassionate. Like that's just how I am. Like I'm a very like sensitive person. Like I and I think I have a lot of empathy for other people. So like I feel what they feel, and I'm able to like put myself in their shoes to some degree, understand what they're going through and try and commiserate.
Yeah.
So I think my clients respect and appreciate that. And that's why, a lot of my, sorry, there's something that just popped in. That's why a lot of my referrals come from previous clients, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, that's great to hear. So I'm assuming that's kind of like the more like the side of the field that you do like. Is there a side to the field that you dislike, or a side that not a lot of people like to talk about, that you think needs to be brought up more?
I mean, one thing that that's a little frustrating is no, I don't really. I'm trying to think. I wasn't prepared for that question. I guess one thing that I do find very frustrating is, so in Ontario, like the insurance industry has, for a long time been lobbying the government, and most drivers have no idea, because until they're in an accident, they don't care what the law is. They just care about cheap premiums. But the reality is that insurance industry has kind of, sorry, there's a phone call that popped up. The insurance industry has really chopped away at a lot of the rights that people have. Like they've whittled down the accident benefits. Like when you have a car accident, you have two potential claims. One is against your own insurance company for things like treatment costs. And you used to have a lot more available, and they were much less strict about providing adequate treatment. And instead of just like providing you with the treatment you need, it's like there's a whole bunch of like very, very stringent rules that unless you have a serious injury, like you might not get the treatment you need. And there's a whole bunch of rules on that, and that I won't get into. But on the tort side as well, they've really made it very challenging for people to succeed in these cases unless they have very serious injuries. There's a statutory deductible of about $40,000 that applies to these cases. Most plaintiffs have no idea until they're injured in a car accident. But they're surprised when they find out that if they want to, if they were to go to trial, and if they want to walk away with more, like even $1, the jury has to give them over $40,000. So it's so things like that. And then there's also this threshold. So there's like the threshold of the deductible, and I don't want to like get too much into the laws on this, but there are these two things that are essentially meant to be doing the same thing. Like they're meant to be like getting rid of any like de minimis, like really minor claims, but it ends up just becoming like a huge barrier to any plaintiff who isn't seriously injured. Like I would like to think that most people would agree that if you were to put to them, okay, this person has permanent chronic pain, but he or she continues to work, they work in pain, they continue to do their daily activities, but they do them in pain, and it's all from this car accident. That they should be entitled to something from the insurer of the person who caused it. But the law makes that not viable in a lot of cases, unfortunately. Like it makes it impossible. And some insurance companies are, sorry, I get this thing.
Okay.
It's popping up on my screen. Uh, some insurance companies are reasonable and much more, reasonable and fair to deal with, but some are very, very aggressive, and they just won't, like, unless you have objective injuries, like severe broken bones, they just will refuse flat out to pay, at least for general damages. So I think that's what the quote unquote dark side of the practice, and a lot of clients, you have to tell a lot of these clients, and it's really hard. Like, they just don't understand. Yeah, it's a very complicated area to even explain to another lawyer. So who doesn't know the practice. So, telling a plaintiff who's never been in an accident before, like, oh, this is how it works.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would, say that I don't like, it's just the perception of personal injury lawyers. I think, unfortunately, and I was watching another one of your podcasts where I think the lawyers from Diamond and Diamond were saying this, like, there's this perception that we're ambulance chasers, and I don't know any personal injury lawyers who are that, that lowbrow and who chase ambulances. Most, there's a lot that come from referrals, advertising, like fair places, and again, we're not, we're here to help. Obviously, we have to make some money off of it, because otherwise, we wouldn't be able to. But it's like, there's just an unfairly dim view of our profession, I think. And there were some articles in the Toronto Star a few years ago that seemed targeted to making our profession look particularly bad. Anyway.
Yeah, wow. I mean, like, that's one question that I like to ask all people that I do talk to, because I think it's really important to be able to say, well, this is how things are, and then this is how things aren't sometimes, especially to students like myself who have no idea what they're getting themselves into until you're actually there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so moving forward, so I know you talked about how your day was very busy, it's very all over the place. Can you tell me a bit about, kind of like in a synopsis, of what your day typically consists of?
So, first thing about my day is it's very unpredictable, not just in terms of like the type of work, but also in terms of when I'm working. Like, some days, like, I'll have a very lazy afternoon where I might, take a nap from like 3 to 5, but then at 11 p.m. I might be responding to like emails for 2 hours. So, it's really unpredictable. A lot of, thanks to technology, a lot of work is doable via email now. And, like, I work with I have a great team in my law clerk, and we have another assistant who works with me. We don't, like, we've been working completely remotely. So, a lot of our communication and delegation and whatnot is all done, by email. So, there's a lot of emailing, that's for sure. But, in terms of, I guess, other than emailing, my day is composed of a lot of meetings. Like, I have a lot of calls with, lawyers, insurance adjusters, clients, potential clients. I also spend a lot of time working on my branding. Something like I did not think I would enjoy before opening my own firm, but it's actually a lot of fun. Like, I actually really enjoy putting together my Instagram page, and working on like building on like my social media, and other things like just websites and whatnot, where you can just get your name out on there. And just doing research on future things. Like, there's, I have a lot of ideas of how I want to maybe advertise or, kind of build on that. And so there's a lot of time spent just kind of researching and then working on my website. Like, it's a constant state of upgrade. Like, every week I have something new that I want to do to change it. And, I love it. Like, I really like it. It's like a baby to me. Like, I just like my website. It's really important to me. I don't know, like, I didn't think I'd enjoy this part of the business as much as I do, but I really, really do. That doesn't really answer, that's a little off topic, but so, the kind of like firm business stuff is a big part of it. And, like I said, branding, meetings, depositions. There's lots of examinations for discovery that come up, mediations. Nowadays everything's from home, so it's really nice.
Yeah.
But what else? I since I opened my firm, I haven't had any court dates, so we haven't had any motions, and like our files are all too early, like too young for pre-trial or trial. So, trying to think what else. Lots of problem solving too. Like that's one of my favorite parts of it. Like, there's always like issues that come up with clients. Client needs this, that, or the other, is having trouble, getting what they need from person Y, or there's an issue with the adjuster. They're having trouble, providing X because they don't have, this. There's just lots of like little problems, and sometimes you get, more interesting creative problems, and it's always just about finding a solution.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, sounds like you have a very busy day. Is there a particular reason that you chose to open your own firm? Like, did you ever think that you were gonna do that one day, or?
Yes and no. So, if you asked me like 10 years ago, I'd say no way. But, in the last like 5 years, it was something that was on the back of my mind. And then on the first day of the pandemic, actually, or I should say the first day of our lockdown, like I think it was March 16th of 2020, I had just started a new job at a new firm. And first day I went in, they set me up, and then they sent me home. And for about 9 months of working there, I did not meet anybody, or I shouldn't say I did meet anybody first, but I did not work one day in the office. I had very little, in-person contact. Like we had this one day where we all went golfing, but aside from that, like I didn't, I didn't meet clients, I didn't meet the lawyers and stuff. So, over that time, it started to really solidify, and I felt more and more like this might be a good time for me to do this, just because, part of what I had always envisioned was some kind of virtual, non-traditional office. I think lawyers spend a fortune on office space, but if you can make it work and it makes sense for you, great. But I guess I just always have seen office space differently. And, I don't, I think part of it's like, don't want to say ego, but, they like to be able to like go into their office and be like, look, it's my office.
Yeah.
I don't really care about that. Like, I care about it for the practicalness of needing, somewhere to meet with clients occasionally. But since COVID, like it really solidified the idea that I can do this remotely or virtually. Eventually we'll need some form of bricks and mortar office, but it's not going to be a traditional one. Mm-hmm. So I think I kind of zigzagged around the answer to your question, but I think COVID was a big reason why I decided to open my firm. Like being forced to work remotely for 9 months, I realized that it's my idea is 100% viable, and things were so tame in some ways that it just made sense in terms of timing.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean, kind of a little off topic, my next question, but I just want to ask, like, how do you stay so optimistic, and how do you stay kind of in the right headspace? Because I think like as a student, I'm already kind of like my head's all over the place. I don't know what to do, how to do it. So
yeah.
How would you say like you have been able to stay so optimistic and been able to kind of keep yourself grounded?
First off, like so up until I opened my own firm, I was always kind of, I don't want to say pessimistic, but like I never had a very bright view of the future. I could never picture where I would be in 10, 20 years. Like, I would think about like being like, am I going to be an associate still after 10, 20 years? Yeah. Am I just going to be another lawyer at a firm? And I really had trouble envisioning my my long-term future. And ever since I opened my firm, I've never been so excited about the future. Like this just feels right, and it's been great. Like the other thing that I've been really lucky about and that's helped is I have a lot of people in my life who've just been very good to me and sent me a lot of files. Like in, I think it's been a little over 6 months, I was able to go from one file to 100 and something files. So, it just, everything just feels great. Like I'm really happy with what we're doing, and being your own boss is so much more liberating and fun than I had ever imagined.
Wow, that's great to hear.
It's tough with COVID. Part of the trick for me is that I'm an introvert extrovert. So I do need some like outside, engagement, but limited. Like I only have so much energy to like be with other people, and then I just like to be alone. So having been forced to stay, at home for so much of the time, didn't affect me the way a lot of people did. And the other thing that I recommend to any lawyer who's having a rough time is get a dog. They are the best. We have two beautiful dogs. If you want, I can show you their sleeping.
Yeah, sure.
Actually, I only see one of them. But, can you see her? That's Petunia.
Oh yeah, kind of. Aw.
This is my girl Petunia.
Petunia. Wow, what a beautiful name. Aw.
And our other dog Gus is hiding somewhere. But he's a mini Dachshund, and we had them for much longer than the pandemic. But they were really a source of. Hello, sorry, I just lost.
Yeah, go ahead.
They were really a source of comfort, and like just they made dealing with the quote unquote trauma of the pandemic a lot.
Well, speaking of the pandemic, how in your perspective has the legal world changed before the pandemic and after?
I don't know about before the pandemic, but I think the less traditional law firms like in-house departments and maybe like more like non-traditional law firms are really viewing like a virtual, non brick and mortar office setup as a much more realistic and good thing. And I'm in that mode. I think, the other thing is that a lot of, we're thankfully moving towards less in-person hearings and depositions. It used to be unheard of to do a video deposition unless it was absolutely essential. And we do them all the time now, and it's great. Like, it really does save time. It makes things easier. Like, there's certain circumstances where you don't want that, but it's really cut down on time. Like, I think also just when you look at the, like working remotely from home and then also, not having to go to in-person hearings, the amount of time everybody's saving each week is amazing. Like, and think about it, like you spend, most people have to drive themselves. So I think the average, work commute is like 40 to 60 minutes. So, you're looking at about 2 hours a day times
just
5.
Driving.
That's 10 hours of driving a week approximately. And think about it, like you're just sitting in a car doing nothing. You can't read, you can't catch up on work. You're just sitting there like listening to music and getting annoyed. So I think that helps a lot in terms of just, making work-life balance better, and also like, cutting down on some of the stress. But I think, sadly, a lot of law firms are not ready to maintain a virtual firm. I think a lot of them are unfortunately going to be pushing to get back into the office rather than, allow people to do a mostly remote work situation. The reality is a lot of law firms, in my experience, just don't trust their support staff enough and don't trust their, lawyers. So, and yeah, they just like FaceTime. They like being able to like see people working, and they don't, if they don't see them working, they just don't believe them. So, and that's a very, I think that's a much more old school type of view of it. But anyway, like I'm of the complete different opinion. Like my law clerk is fantastic. She's amazing. And she works 100% at home. Like, she does things around her time, like her schedule, and she's always there when I need her. she's just, she's doing great, even though I don't see her ever at the moment. Like we'll probably start having like a 1 day in office a week at some point, just so that we can, catch up and like bond a little more. But other than that, like, I think virtual work is amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's great to hear. I'm glad that this hasn't affected you in as much of a negative way that I think a lot of people have also experienced during this time. So that's great to hear.
Thanks. I've been lucky.
Yeah. So my next question, you kind of touched on it a little bit regarding kind of like your misconceptions and the perception of what people think your field is in particular. So touching on that briefly, do you think there's is there any type of really big misconception that there is with either your personal injury in particular in that field, or in kind of like insurance law in general?
I guess, like one thing that I get with clients, which is pretty common, is, especially when they don't have any experience, their knowledge is very limited, and it's limited towards like American, compensation. And, in the States, they have these crazy, like gazillion-dollar awards, like, for all sorts of like minor and not so serious injuries. It's not like that in Ontario. Like BC is a little more generous when it comes to damages, but in Ontario, pain and suffering damages are pretty modest. So I think that's the biggest misconception a lot of clients have. I can't think of anything else, to be honest, in terms of that.
That's fine, no worries. Yeah, that's good to hear, because I mean, like, I think a lot of people just have so many questions about like being a lawyer and then the stuff that goes into being a lawyer. And I think not a lot of people get the opportunity unless they're in a situation where they have to talk to a lawyer for them to be able to ask those questions. So
yeah.
I
mean, I guess I don't know if this is really a misconception, but a lot of people go into law school because they don't know what else to do. And I don't want to say it's a bad decision to make. I was that's not how it was for me. But I have a lot of friends who went in and they thought they'd be happy because it was like it's a potentially lucrative career, and they go in and then they realize that they're actually unhappy, although they might be making enough money. So, at the end of the day, I think people have to be aware of. It's not for everybody, and also sometimes you have to decide if money is more important than happiness. So sometimes a career that's much more fulfilling might be less lucrative. So I don't know if that was kind of off topic.
No, that was good. That was fine. That was a good answer. Speaking on that topic, I will kind of start to wrap things up because I know you're quite busy. What is one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self prior to attending law school? I know it's a really broad question.
Yeah, that's such a tough question. I think just to be more confident, I guess. Like it's silly, but like part of the reason, like I mentioned how I used to be like terrible at job interviews and stuff. It goes back to confidence,
right?
And like I used to just not have the confidence in something. Like I know better than anyone, like myself. And you should just remember that when it comes to certain things, like you should just have confidence in them. Like you walking into a job interview, like I don't know, this is kind of a shitty answer, to be honest, but to be honest, I can't really think of a good
yeah,
but
don't worry, that's a good answer. That's good enough. So I guess kind of the same question, but is there one piece of advice that you would give to the future generations of the legal professionals like myself and those who are a part of this program?
Yeah, like I was saying about going into law school, just make sure you like it and really do your best to um, find a practice that you like. You know, like in law school is one of the best opportunities you have to really touch on different things, and you can do little bits of volunteering for different type of organizations or firms and whatnot, and it's really one of the best opportunities you have, because you don't have to at that point decide what you're doing. Unfortunately, lawyers get pigeonholed. You know, you practice for even 1 year in a certain area, and then, well, those are the jobs you're looking at for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's more important than with any other fields, maybe not medicine, but, you know, it's very important that you try to pick something right off the bat that you do like. And it's hard to know what you like unless you try. So, you know, I highly recommend volunteering. And, you know, like research jobs are great, but, you know, they look really good on the resume, but they don't provide that. So, you know, like I really think volunteering, you know, either part-time during the semester or over the summer time, like at a firm, like get some firm experience in areas you think you might like, and, you know, try to get as much as a varied experience as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Don't get caught up in the whole OCI, you know, Bay Street firm. Because most of the people I know, like some of them are, don't get me wrong, like some of the people I know are happy, have been very successful. We're still there since, you know, graduating law school. But, you know, I think most of the people I knew who went into Bay Street, into the big firms, ended up not being happy with the lack of work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, it really, you know, it really affects you. So I think at the end of the day, you need to be able to enjoy your life.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very, very important.
Yeah. Well, that's really good advice. Thank you for that.
A pleasure.
So I will let you go a little bit early. We'll kind of wrap things up now, if you're okay with that. Is there anything else? It's 11:20, but yeah. So just before you go, is there anything else? It could be like something completely random that you would like to let myself know or let the people watching this after know. It doesn't have to be anything related to law necessarily. It could be anything really.
Yeah.
Just kind of your last thoughts or one last thing to say.
Well, I'll be honest, I really can't think of anything. So.
That's okay. No worries. That's okay. Well then, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for taking the time for the pre-law shadows. On behalf of myself and Aisha and the rest of the crew, thank you very much. For those of you who are watching, thank you for watching this today. We hope that you enjoy Joshua and his experience, well, his very brief experience on his life so far.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you would like to say your contact information for those students who might want to reach out to you, you totally can as well.
Yeah, please don't hesitate. Like, especially like anybody who's thinking about going into law school. I've you know, I used to do this professionally, but now I just do it kind of like to help people. You know, like talk to you and see what I can do to give you feedback on law school applications and personal statements. Just like pro bono, but it's Josh, Josh, at jgoldberglaw.ca. It's my email, best place to reach me. And you can also join me on my work line, 416-943-6585. It's direct.
Perfect. So thank you very much. I will stop the recording.